What's up, my people? Welcome to Fellowship Bible Church's Sermon Spotlight, where we're coming at you each and every week with a fresh weekend of debrief and effort to send biblical truth. What better way to do that than by the power of conversation? I'm one of your hosts, Caleb Pearson. Joining me today in the host spotlight, Miss Abby Lindenberg. Abby, how are you?
Good.
Happy fall, sort of, not yet, but you know what I mean.
False summer. What's it called? Second summer?
Second summer, false autumn. There's 10 seasons in Virginia.
Oh, really?
It just keeps changing.
Oh, I love it.
You've been here long enough. You're kind of noticing that.
Yeah, a little.
The temperature will dip, and then it'll hit 100 degrees.
I see that.
And then, once your heart's ready for
I'm just
it'll
thankful
betray
bitter
you.
cold isn't coming our way. So
Yeah, that's true.
Fall is like a fun thing instead of a
It is fun.
premonition.
Are you a big autumn guy? What's your favorite season?
Probably spring.
You're a spring
I never
guy.
liked autumn.
You have a green thumb, though.
Yeah, I like that too.
You're a
but
plant
autumn
guy.
is lovely, except for in Michigan, it was always the precursor to cold.
Just kinda sad.
Who wants
Yeah.
this, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. You've heard him already. He's back with us, Tim Sanford. Tim, thanks for being here, brother.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Let's
Thank
jump
you.
into a Sunday in review. Abby, I'll come your way first. We'll see what Tim brought us this weekend and learn more about Mark a little bit.
Yeah. So we were in Mark chapter 7 again, and I heard that your Saturday message was different than your Sunday message.
Okay.
People get talking.
Yeah, there's like some comparison going on, which I don't know if that's better or worse that people heard it more than once, but
That's funny.
yeah. But
There was quite a bit that changed between Saturday night and because all Saturday night I was tossing and turning on it a little bit, but just things I dropped out, got rid of so that I could streamline it.
that makes sense. That makes sense.
So in your preparation for this, I mean, there's a lot that happens in chapter 7.
Yes.
How do you decide what to emphasize, what not to? At first glance, it's a passage that might be an uncomfortable one, but then as our preaching team it's a fun one. And you really do get to that point and you do a good job demonstrating how exciting it is to see the Lord.
It's amazing stuff, isn't it?
Yeah. Still his steadfastness in a very interesting passage. So walk us through what that was like.
As far as cutting it out and all that kind of
just
stuff.
preparing.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much to be said about all that kind of stuff. But as we've talked before, you're trying to figure out, well, what is the author trying to say? And so from my perspective, we didn't mention this again because of time, but you'll see that the portion before then is talking to the multitude, right? And you got the Pharisees involved with it and that kind of stuff. Now he moves away geographically and into a whole different region, which means a whole different people group. And he's going to engage with them both the last week and then this upcoming week. And then we'll see him come back around. It's not so much that these are, I wouldn't call them bookends per se to it, or even a parenthetical thought, but there's a shift that then we shift back to it, right? Mm-hmm. So, of course, to me, that always means an alert, something's going on and why. Mm-hmm. And it just seems, as looking at these two passages, that, what the Lord is trying to speak into that woman, which ultimately is then being used as a story for, Gentile believers in Rome, and then ultimately for us too. Mm-hmm. There's something that he's saying to us, and I think that as we have seen so far, a main theme is like we've got the leaders of Israel rejecting him, right? Mm-hmm. And now we're going actually through a process of time. We've called it the hinge as it pertains to his ministry. We'll actually talk about the hinge of the book pretty soon by chapter 8. But the hinge of his ministry is begun to swing from mighty Messiah to suffering servant, right? Mm-hmm. And these little things that come up, in some ways, they're a bit of a hint at some of that, right? Like the fact that he's addressing this Gentile lady and engaging with her, but he's saying, listen, it's first and then, because there's a process that's involved in all that. So we'll actually see that process happening throughout this book of Mark is what we're going to.
When I appreciate this weekend, you brought out that idea of Jesus' response to her at first glance is kind of like, comes across as insensitive, crude. Like, come on, Jesus, you really dropped the ball there. But to put yourself in the shoes of her cultural context and what he is actually saying compared to what we hear it as, that gap can be pretty wide, especially in these gospel accounts.
For sure.
So I appreciated how you navigated that and how we do get to a point where his character hasn't changed. He's a compassionate God, but there's so much going on in these Jesus encounters that really is how you.
And I also think it shows the importance of, like, if I just read through that, I tend to interpret at some level through my personal grid. And there's something that's valuable about stopping that process and going on, okay, what is it really saying here? Some of that takes a little bit of digging, right? To get that. But when you do, all of a sudden you find out, okay, the way I was reading it is so different than the way that it's really intended to be read. And it changes, like you say, it's actually 180 degrees for me, right? Going from what? That's a terrible way to talk to her, to, oh my word, how gentle and careful and gracious you were, and how sweet, so that she actually could sweetly reply to him too. Yeah, but Lord, even the little dogs get something, right? They get little crumbs.
Yeah, well, in the passage too, it seems like he's kind of ignoring her at first too.
He was.
So that adds to the
feeling of
the icky feeling that we have of his response.
Rude? Yeah.
But then you explained it too as like a persistence. And so I was kind of wondering, is there a tension between persistence, like in prayer, versus submitting to God's will?
Yeah, I think there is. I think there certainly can be on, let's say, on the negative side of things, right? Like we can, if you want to call it, be persistent with him, when in reality, I just want what I want, and I'm going to keep after him until I get what I want.
Yeah.
Right. From a self-centered. Hers was not that, because this had to do actually with her daughter.
Right.
Right. So there could have been some selfishness there, but for the most part, she's caring first. In fact, Matthew tells us when she says it, she owns the daughter's struggle as if it's her own. Like I'm caring for this as if it were me, kind of a thing, which is unique too. But but I do believe, like, the scripture does talk to us about persistent prayer, and it's not so much that if we just hound God until he gets weary of us,
stubborn prayer,
right? But it's more like, no, I have a confidence that he wants me to say things to him. He invites me and he commands me both to come to him in prayer. I'm going to do that. And I'm going to do that because this is a consistent thing on my heart, and I'm waiting on him. It's not persistent as in impatient persistence. It's just being persistent in that I know you're a loving God. I know that you hear me. I'm not questioning that, but you invite me to come, and this is a continual thing until somewhere either the Lord answers that prayer or speaks somehow to our heart that, hey, child, I've heard that, and my answer is wait or no or something. Time to let this one go, right?
Yeah.
But I think without that, man, we have, what an open opportunity we have to speak to him in prayer.
And the open opportunity we have to speak to him. I love the idea that he allows and appreciates the dialogue too. Like he doesn't just shut her down, zip it or okay, it's fixed, get out of my way. But there is a back and forth. We get to learn a lot about her view of God, her view of Jesus, in the way she responds to him.
That's right.
And it can help break down some of those maybe misconceptions about an unapproachable God. Like Mark is wanting to do that, I think.
Yeah.
He was approached multiple times, and look what happened.
Yes.
And so it changes the way. Let me just read something from Tim's notes that I appreciated. This is at the end of your notes. The stories in Mark are designed to disciple us further in our walk with him, learning about him and learning to trust him. We're seeing all these accounts of other people doing that, learning to trust him and seeing the fruit of it, learning to trust him and seeing the fruit of it. And at the same time, it's all based on who he is. And I think that does sum it up well, what Mark is trying to do. And so I've noticed, and I'm sure you have as well, like at the same time we have this tension of, oh, what should I preach and what should I cut out? The flip side of that is we're all always kind of preaching the same thing. He mighty Messiah, suffering servant. This is going to, it is taking a black and white picture and turning it into color by the time we finish the book. And I sense that happening, at least for me personally, as we study it. It's not so much the like, oh, it's Tim's up this weekend, it's this, but it's more like, okay, Lord, how is that narrative going to progress even further? Because that was the heart behind the author. Doing that. And you work with teenagers and they learn for the first time there weren't chapter headings in the original text. There weren't divisions and cute little headings it was a story that the scrolls were going and the Spirit was moving, and it's all one narrative. So I really appreciate that as well.
Yeah, I felt like you opened it with these stories are caring for us, and then also closing it with these are also examples for us, like all these interactions. And I was thinking through this interaction too, and it kind of feels twofold. Like he's the interaction with her, it's teaching her a lesson that's something we can reflect on, but it also is kind of like an example for the disciples on pride and inclusivity. And I don't know. Do you think it's more one than the other, or was it equally for both?
I think it was equally for both, but in Mark's gospel, it gives us the narrative from her perspective, if you will.
Yeah.
Matthew tends to bring in more of the disciples. That's where you get, and I didn't take the time again to go into that, other than I think I mentioned it in one of the services, but Matthew's gospel actually tells us that the disciples, when she is pestering him, if you will, for a response, and he's not even acknowledging her, they eventually jump in and you're not sure from the text whether they're saying, all right, enough already. If you'll just answer her, get her off our case, like a non-compassion perspective, or if they were in some kind of compassion for her, but Lord, you need to answer her. Come on, time to talk here, right?
Yeah.
Like, so there's their perspective too, as they are watching some of this and learning, and seemingly, they are struggling, as we know, because Mark doesn't really talk too well about any of the disciples throughout the entirety of his gospel, right? Because of the struggles that they go through, which is very normal for us. But I was actually thinking about what you were saying here so I mentioned to you guys before we started that I've gotten more response from people for this sermon probably than in any other one that I've had. And in thinking of that, even as you're talking, we're learning some of these things. The responses were in keeping with that. They were telling me of how a situation that the Lord used in their life to cause their awareness of a lack of trust in him, issues of pride in their own hearts. There's just so much, I think, that we can identify with if we will, right? Like there's times when we won't because we think more highly of ourselves than we ought to think. But when we begin to see some of that and realize, oh man, I've horribly failed, let's say, in trusting God in that particular scenario, then this becomes much more of a comfort even, because she's going through a trial here that she's asking him, but she's growing in that. And that's what God is looking for, growth, right? Maturing process that's happening. So it's, I don't know, just seemed to hit a chord, I guess.
Yeah. And the very fact that it's in Scripture in this way, that it's profitable for us today, demonstrates, and the Lord does this faithfully over time. Like, it's not just to deliver her or deliver her daughter and be the genie God that helped. It's also so that something like that could be a witness.
Yes.
And so that a changed life could not just rest in the fact, oh, congrats, your life's changed, but that it would have a ripple effect in a way and be further witness, further testimony to Jesus. And so it's crazy that we can read it like this and be like, that's obviously what it is. Right. But then we look at our own life and we fracture that.
Yes.
I could spend an embarrassing amount of time celebrating the fact that Jesus did something for me like this or whatever, instead of thinking, wait, this magnificent story is one small example, and it's not about the woman, not about her daughter, it's about Jesus.
Right.
Do I look at my life and think that same thing?
Right.
Easily, no, I don't.
Yeah.
But that is what's convicting to continue to study this. And I think about the well-known preachers and evangelists in our country. A few of them have died in the last couple of weeks. A lot of big names, and they have a lot of like quotes from their deathbed of just saying like, I'm so glad Jesus died for me. My view of God is crazy, and I can't wait to meet him. And somebody out there has the more I learn about God, the more I realize I don't know about him.
Yes, right.
And that is so true. Like I'm young and growing in it, but you can just tell when we realize, we get on the brink of realizing how big God is, and we have to sit in awe of that for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then you take a step further, and the lens just keeps getting wider.
Yeah.
It's very humbling. And
it
I
is,
think this book does that.
Yeah, and I think too, as far as to our, what we've been talking about is that the more I get to know him, the more I begin to have a growing trust in him. So the situations are like, okay, her story has been used by the Lord through centuries to probably millions of people who have read through that, right?
Right.
My story probably doesn't have that broad of a distribution to it.
Yeah.
But at least for me as a proud person, I want it to. But the reality is the reason I want it to is because I know how this has affected so many, and then accolades come with all that, right? It's all pride is what it is. But as you grow in your understanding of him and you're learning more and more to trust him, whether he uses the circumstances of your life just in your little small sphere,
right,
or whether it's in a much bigger sphere, becomes less of a value to you because you are in the master's hand, and he has the prerogative as the master to use you in the way that he wants. And the way that he'll use you is what's best, right? We were talking something about, like, do we really believe it's best? Well, in my scenario of arrogance, what's best for me is that everybody knows who I am and what I'm doing, and they pat me on the back and they think so wonderful. And oh, by the way, God gets a little glory out of that, right? Sure. Like, that's not really what's best. So sometimes you have the big name preachers who are well known and impact a lot, but you have these guys who are serving.
You never hear about.
Never hear. They just continue on.
And praise the Lord for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and to leave it with him, for that to be okay, because he does know best. And yeah.
I liked it too. That I found it helpful to think about it as he didn't deny her, and he was ignoring her, but it was more of a delay. It wasn't that he never answered her. He delayed that interaction with her, and I think that's something that we can all struggle with patience. I know I struggle with patience. Like, you're waiting for something, and it doesn't look like you're saying. It doesn't look like what we want or what we think is best.
Yes.
But you also pointed out too that withholding that helped shape her.
Right.
And helped with bringing out the humility within her.
Yes.
Which I just thought was really interesting. Like, he does it as a demonstration, and it's to help us. And again, our initial interpretation was that he was being harsh, but it was actually for her betterment.
Yes.
And you put that in the bigger picture as well. He's the way has been prepared. Now he's preparing his own way. He's going to the cross for her.
Yeah.
So the idea that she's owed that, or that, Jesus would be selling anybody short. He could have done none of these things as he prepared to go for the cross, to do the big one.
Yeah.
So these are the decorations on the tree, so to speak, where he is going above and beyond for these people. And again, the context of it, you really just start to have an awestruck awareness for that, I think, the way he writes, and yet chooses when to elaborate on the detail. You mentioned, because the place is listed and then they move to here, it's a little bit of a break from that original audience of Jesus. Mark is a brief writer. So if there is detail, there's going to be a very good reason for it.
Yeah, he's telling us something.
And that's the beauty of expositional teaching. It's there. We're going to address it. And it all reinforces that narrative.
So Arnold Fruchtenbaum, you've read his book, right? Like, he makes a statement to your point of, like, once the leaders of the nation rejected him, that from that point on, the Lord is now engaging with individuals, and he doesn't just, so you remember when the friends lowered the man down, and your faith, like, he's speaking to the friends and he deals with that guy. Now, as that swings, then he's addressing every individual.
Right.
So he talks to her, or he doesn't talk to her at first. She's persistent. Like, all of that is designed to have help to her processing and growing and maturing, and ultimately expressing faith. I trust you, God. And then he moves on that person's behalf. So you see that consistently throughout now as he goes to the cross, really, as he's turning towards that. He's always now addressing the individuals and wanting to work in their hearts. And in some ways, it doesn't matter whether they're Jew or Gentile. A lot of the context is Jew, right? But in this case, she's a Gentile. So there's a certain amount, again, where she's not first, she's second. It goes back to, remember the demoniac that we just read about, like, he wanted to come along. Well, no. You can't be my disciple because you're a Gentile. We never covered that when we went through that, right? But he's a Gentile. Right now, my disciples are Jews because that's where I'm, that's the emphasis of this. But when this all changes and now the church is what's going to be who I'm, now all the Gentiles, the door swings wide open for them, right? We go through it's a process where that happens, but ultimately you and I are benefiting as a result of this. We get to be followers of the Christ as Gentiles. Like, that wouldn't have happened if he'd have stayed here to still be offering up his messiahship. That wasn't for us. That was for them.
Yeah.
Isn't it rich?
Yeah.
Amazing kind of stuff. So you learn some of these things, and then as they fit into play, you go, oh, no wonder he's doing what he's doing. I get it. At least I get enough to be appreciative of what he's doing and know that there's probably a lot of other things that are going on there that I don't know, but I'll trust him for those too. And but the enemy of our souls loves to whisper into our heart that he really is mean and he really doesn't like you, and he gives you these things, but
he's distant, he's disappointed. Yeah.
And we buy into it because our hearts are typically, prone that way anyways. And so no wonder he's got to continue. This whole thing of trust, I think, is such a unique issue to wrestle with, of why is it so prevalent in the human heart? Well, we know ultimately it's because of sin in our lives, but it's just how much we are prone to distrust him. He can no sooner meet a need of mine, and the next little thing I'm not trusting him for. It's that we're that fickle. So, because we're going to see here in this next portion, he's in a sense, it's a repetition, right? He's teaching again to trust me, trust me, trust me. It's just different circumstances, and there's always different circumstances. But trust me is the same thing throughout, because we have such a need, I think, anyways, for our hearts to learn that is what we need to do and find rest to our souls. What a opportunity he's made for us. That's found no other place.
It's good.
Isn't it? We get to preaching already again, aren't we? Watch out.
Tim, I appreciate it. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Abby, thank you very much.
Yeah.
As a reminder to our listeners, you can find us at fbcva.org. We got podcasts coming at you each and every week as we continue our study in Mark, Mighty Messiah, Suffering Servant. The fact of the matter, everybody, is that sermons are not meant to just take an hour, but rather transform a lifetime. Until next week, much love. God bless.